So I'm going to make a little start, and I'm going to work very much through planning. Knowing the road ahead was how we address this, and basically we want to try and highlight to you where you can find all the key information that might help you work alongside your son or daughter in helping them to plan and prepare for their exams. And we've done that primarily through our new school website. So if you go onto the school website, which is lurgancollege.co.uk, you'll find all the key information that we're going to refer to tonight for you. So predominantly we have our subject pages. So when you click on academic at the top toolbar and you scroll down to departments, you have your selection of all the departments that we have in the school there, and they have individual subject pages. When you go there, what you'll be able to see are drop-down menus for GCSE, AS and A2 study, and what they'll do is they will give you a course outline, a sort of an indication as to what the course entails, the breakdown between coursework and examinations if applicable, and so on. Beyond that, there will be a little red hyperlink at both GCSE and A-level, and those hyperlinks will take you directly to the SIA or the relevant exam board's specification. So if you were to click on the red SIA GCSE specification, you'll forgive me as a PE teacher by using the PE department as my exemplar. When you click on that hyperlink, that will take you to the SIA GCSE physical education specification, and then you'll have the ability to scroll through that and have a look at the and all of the areas that your son or daughter will have to cover over the course of the next while. So that's the direction to the key information and the content and how much you will have to cover or how little you will have to cover. I suppose the key question then is, how long will we have to cover that? So under the parents section, we have examination information in the drop down. When you go in there, you click on examination information, and all the up-to-date A-level and GCSE exam timetables are in there. All pupils will be receiving their individual exam timetables tomorrow, so they will have that at their disposal as well. So hopefully that'll give you an idea as to where you'll find the key information in relation to what the pupils are going to have to study and when their exams are due to take place. So I wanted to talk tonight primarily about how we go about structuring and setting up effective study routines. And what we've done is we have a template which is available in the parents section of the website, again under supporting learning at home. When you go on there, this is available for print or it's available for download. It's just a blank template that you can fill in with your son or daughter based around, the bottom line, I suppose, that we want to make clear at the very outset here is, your son or daughter better than we do. You know what makes them tick, and you will know what way their life is revolving around their studies and all the other aspects of their life that you want to try and fit in, which we're going to talk about later on. It's very, very important that we're very aware of the fact that we have information to share, but ultimately you know your child better than we do, and you'll know how to best support them, hopefully given the information we provide you with this evening. So there's a blank template there, and I suppose before we were to move on and before we start trying to prioritize, we thought, how do you prioritize? You'll be receiving report cards this week. All report cards should be out by Friday, and your son or daughter will know where their strengths are, where they're going well, where they maybe need to spend time and more effort. And here's an example. Once we've downloaded the specification, we would conduct a RAG analysis in terms of, with the respiratory system example in PE here, I would go down that with my son or my daughter, and if green would be that they're very happy, they know it very well, they're very comfortable with it. Amber would be that they mostly know it, they're pretty comfortable with it, there are a few little odds and sods that they will want to tidy up on. Red would be something that they're genuinely struggling with, and they might need to spend a little bit of extra time and attention on. So by going through the specifications, it's going to give you an idea of where you're going to need to spend more time, where you might need to spend less time, and where specifically you're going to want to spend that time in terms of topics. So conducting that RAG analysis and prioritizing the work will hopefully help you then set about completing the template. And I have a draft template here. Now, you'll forgive me for this. This is based on a GCSE student doing 10 GCSEs, randomly selected by me. And what I've tried to show you there is this is on the basis that they're off on study leave, or this is over the Easter break when they've got all day, every day. Now, one of the things we're going to advocate is we don't anticipate that they'll study all day, every day, and quite the opposite. What we're trying to provide is a structure It'll give them the flexibility and the confidence to know that they've done the work, but they've also created a little bit of free time in their day for them to go away and enjoy themselves with their friends, to go to their part-time jobs, to go to football. Apologies here, I based this really around my son, bar the work section. We've got Xbox in there, we have football practice, we have BB. So I've tried to put a little bit of realistic life around this. So as you can see, we've plotted up at 8 o'clock. That the kids, when they're off on study leave, maintain that discipline of getting up in the morning and making the very most of their day. We've color coded it so it's very easy for them to follow. What I would say is, rather than just putting the subjects there, as you can see I've done here, to be a little bit more specific and add the topics underneath. So at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock on the Monday morning, you can see their PE. We're going to look specifically at respiratory system. Very important that we build in frequent rest breaks. Not just the rest breaks that you can see here. You know, at 11 o'clock, you can see every day, Monday to Friday, there's no work being done. We're talking even in that hour slot between 9 and 10. If the pupils were to work for half an hour and take a 15-minute break, or as I would have done, 20 minutes and a 10-minute break, it's just important for them to continually get up, get the blood flowing again, go change posture, get a different scenery, go and get a drink, and just, you know, keep their minds and the blood flow to their brain rather than just sitting for prolonged periods of time. So adding frequent breaks is vitally important, but I suppose the discipline of making sure that when you do take a break, that you go back to it. My mum and dad used to joke with me that I worked between breaks, but maybe I was a little bit ahead of my time. The most important thing there is the last one. You know, we're aware that a planner is great. For some people, a planner will be really effective and it will provide the structure and the basis that they very much need. We are aware, however, we have some really diligent pupils in school who might find this very stressful, and that some things in life come along and will interrupt this, and we mustn't find it something that then becomes an intimidating thing for them. The key here is to be flexible. This is just providing the framework for our pupils to sit down and have a plan for the week that they'll try their best to stick to, but we're realistic enough to know that life happens. And some things will happen which will interfere with this. But if they have this basic framework, they might be able to chop and change and manipulate over the course of the week to best suit them and to best suit you. Just provides a little bit of a framework. So important to rag and to prioritize what we're going to study, but it's important to have a plan. If, like me, you're electronically minded, there's a great website called Get Revising. And getrevising.co.uk, the link is there, and the link will be on the school website for you to follow. You know, there's a great electronic way of setting a consistent revision schedule via using the Get Revising planner. It's really good. The kids can add new commitments, they can edit classes, edit exams, they can add all the information in there, they can set the amount of time that they wish to spend revising, and then they can the best thing about it, there's a printable PDF which they can then print out and place on a bedroom wall or on a fridge door, whatever that might be. So getrevising.co.uk is an excellent tool for an electronic revision planner if you prefer to do it that way. This might be, you know, this is obvious. The best learning environment might not necessarily be at home. Certainly in my house, it wouldn't necessarily be at home because there's so much activity going on, but it's very important that we have a quiet space and a quiet place. You'll maybe, if anyone has a bedroom that looks like that, congratulations to you, because I think you'll be very much in the minority. That was generated by AI, which Mr. Hamill's going to talk about later on, but a quiet, well-lit space that is a comfortable temperature, not too hot, not too cold. And one of the key things is maybe keeping the window a little bit open to allow a little bit of airflow through the room. We're going to talk a lot now about the distractions, and no doubt you're as aware as the rest of us the dangers of mobile phones, and the fact that we're going to talk about using technology later on, but mobile phones are a significant distraction. And you know, if they're going to have their mobile phone on them, if they're going to use mobile phones as a technological means to access some of the stuff we're going to talk about later on, be really important that they have the discipline to turn off notifications so that Snapchat or Instagram isn't pinging every 30 seconds. Even block social media if you can. And again, Xbox and PS, particularly for boys, television, other things, music, are all distractions that we would advise that we try and minimize as best as possible. The best learning environment, we would ask that the best resources are provided for your son or daughter. You know, I suppose primarily we can't start unless we're confident that we have our notes and the notes are up to date, they're complete, and they're organised. So even spending an evening getting the notes organised as per the specifications will be a solid basis and provide a lot of, I think will provide a lot of reassurance to the pupils that when they sit down that they have a foundation upon which they can build. They'll have textbooks, or they'll have access to Google Classroom and all of the information. We would advise potentially looking at revision guides, particularly for parents. If you're going to sit down alongside your children to revise, revision guides are a nice starter for us. Notebooks, record cards, or flashcards, as we're coming to talk about it later on, really important for summarizing and making notes, and flashcards that we'll be able to use for effective retrieval practice, which Mr. Hamill will talk about later on. Obviously, different colored pens, highlighters to highlight key information, and just to make the page come to life, to make it much more easily remembered and more memorable for the pupils, just to lessen that forgetting. And I've left the last one to the end for a specific reason, because I'm going to talk about that now. Technology, laptop versus mobile phone. Certainly the preference here and the advice here would be, if you can, and if you have access to a laptop, I would push towards a laptop rather than the use of a mobile phone, simply because of the distraction and the potential for it. That takes me to my next slide. We would say it's a balancing act, and again, your child better than we do. There are some really excellent resources out there that will benefit the pupils when they're studying for GCSE and A-level. We've listed them there. The school has a subscription to GCSE Pod, which is lots of great interactive videos. It has lots of retrieval activities. It has lots of quizzes already made for the pupils at GCSE level. BBC Bite Size is similar. It has useful revision guides as well, which are good for GCSE, but also for A-level work. Quizlet is something that we use in school, online flashcards and online quizzes, the same as Anki. Anki is just a digital flashcard, which Mr. Hamill will outline to you later on. And as I said previously, Get Revising is a really good revision website, and allows you to filter by GCSE or A-level, or by level of study. It allows you to filter by exam board, and there's some fantastic information in there. Obviously, most subjects in the college will have access to Google Classroom, and there'll be a lot of notes, activities, and specifications on the Google Classroom. The key here is the balancing act. We would be advocating that technology can be a really beneficial thing, but obviously there's the danger of the distraction there. Certainly if it's anything like my house, the kids will be glued to it, and they may well, they're time bandits. They may well spend an awful lot more of their time looking at things that we prefer them to be focused, not on, because the clock's ticking. The exams are coming around at a pace, and really we want them to plan. We want them to have a structured, effective study environment which will put their mind at ease, to lead them to effective retrieval practice, which will benefit their pastoral care, which will benefit their mental health and their physical health going forward. So that's my little introduction into planning. I promised that I would be quick. I am going to hand over now to Mr. Hamill, who's going to go from the planning stage into how we effectively practice and how we effectively learn and effectively revise. So I'm now going to hand over to Mr. Hamill.
Yeah, so Mr. McCallum was talking about the planning. Now we're going to talk about a little bit of putting it into practice, but I want to start off this little bit of the presentation with a little bit of a riddle. So who am I? Let's see how good you are at solving this. I have studied for GCSEs 3 times over the past few years, but I haven't sat one single exam paper. Who am I? Well, of course, you guessed it. I am the parent of teenagers. Well, at least I'm the parent of one teenager. 2 have now got into their 20s. And I must say that every time I sat down to revise with them, it looked exactly like this. No, not a bit of it. There was a lot of tension at times, a lot of emotional stress, a lot of having to give many, many talks and support. And it wasn't always easy. We got through, but it wasn't always easy. So I wonder, does this image at all represent any of your feeling? I wonder, is this, the feeling that your son or daughter has with the looming exams? Or is this perhaps the feeling that you have whenever you're venturing towards the teenager's bedroom and you don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get? Well, actually, what I'm going to suggest is this in many ways represented my experience whenever I was working with my own daughters and helping them to revise for their GCSEs and A-levels, because I've been teaching at Lurgan College now for over 30 years. I see some of you in this meeting tonight that I actually taught in the early 1990s. What goes around comes around, I guess. I have a wee bit of experience, But I'm quite happy to admit that whenever I was trying to work with my own teens through this, I felt out of my depth, largely because I ended up having to study subjects with them that I hadn't studied in a long, long time. Now, geography, okay, no problem, but chemistry, as you will discover, is definitely one of my nemeses. So I really just want to try and frame this in a more autobiographical approach, and just acknowledge at the outset, I want to try and share some of the experiences that I've picked up as a parent as well as a teacher, because I certainly felt at times when I looked at the subjects that I didn't know too well, I want to help, but I'm not sure how. So I wanted to outline just quickly here a few of the key points that I thought were quite useful. Many of these Ms. McCallan has talked about already. Absolutely echo printing out the spec, absolutely first start. Making sure that the notes are in order. The revision guide was an absolute a godsend for me on many occasions, because I was very much out of my depth. But I wanted then to move on mostly in terms of, if you've got all of that, preparing yourself in place, how do you go about supporting your son and daughter? And of course, one of the first things will be making revision notes. We're going to talk about the fact that we shouldn't just stop at revision notes. Our young people should go beyond that, but this will, for many of them, be the first start. This will be the safety net, and we want to absolutely acknowledge that. So how do you make effective revision notes? Well, you're not just copying out. If you're copying out, you're probably not really engaging your brain. And one of the points that we'll try to make here is it's really important that the teens, your son or daughter, really are trying to think as much as possible whenever they're revising. And the real benefit you get from making notes is in that process of summarizing. There's two key things that I would encourage you to consider whenever you're trying to support your son or daughter in this. Help them to identify the key ideas. Now, the spec is really helpful in that as well, which is why it's so important to print that out. What are the key ideas? Are they building that kind of architecture of the subject that they're studying? And how are those key ideas connected? So they're not just learning tiny little factoids, they're building up a richer, more nuanced grasp of everything. And if you do that, then you can lay out your revision notes. Certainly, I'm a fan of revision notes that are not just written out in paragraphs again. You want to lean into the fact that you can summarize and you can link together, whether it's bullet points, whether it's spider diagrams, whatever. It's what are those key ideas and how are they connected? Now, I've produced a series of what we call walkthroughs. These are all available on the school website for you to have a little bit of a look at later, which will take you through in a little bit more detail some of the ideas about how you can do all of the techniques that I'll be sharing with you tonight. But as I've said, the key idea with revision notes is not what you do with them once they're made. What do you do next? So one of the key points I'm absolutely trying to get across to my pupils is this: if you're not thinking, you're probably not learning. If you're not thinking, you're probably not learning. And part of the downside and the danger you need to be aware of with revision notes is, as soon as they're made, and even if they're made well with that summarizing the key ideas and the connections, students can then sit and reread in the hope that this happens. Oh, if only it were that easy. The cutest GIF I think I've ever come across. Okay, your son or daughter probably won't do that literally, but are they doing it figuratively, metaphorically? And that brings us to then the key point I want to make next, that not all revision strategies are created equal. So here's everybody starting on the same points in the race. And this is them being a little bit staggered. Now, I was showing this to Mr. McCallan earlier on, and he objected to this. Mr. Hamill, don't you know, he said that they're actually all going to be running the same distance in the end. Yes, I know that. You can take the man out of the PE department, I guess, but not the other way around. But you'd go with me on this, please, because it's the whole idea that there is some of the techniques that just give you that little bit of an advantage. So we want to try and just reveal those to you, I guess, just to let you see what the best bets are. If you're going to start anywhere, this is the place to start. If you are interested in reading up a little bit more in the background on this, I highly recommend this PDF, freely available online, and I'm just going to share a few of the things that are being explored in that. A number of the different techniques that students can use whenever they're revising, but not all of them are created equal. Now, we'll not put anybody in the spot, but on that list, I wonder what would you put up at the top and what would you put at the bottom? The study that I just showed you by Dunlosky says that some of them are less effective. Now, they'll all be effective to some degree, but some of them are less effective. The rereading and the highlighting, which that little GIF unfortunately summarizes the pupil's approach far too frequently. They'll just make these beautiful revision notes and then just sit and read them. But strategies that are in the middle are kind of asking yourself why it's true, connecting the new to the known. But the two that came out right at the top, and all the studies that they did, that as the most effective strategies are these two. Self-quizzing, testing yourself, in other words, and then spacing it out, seeing revision not just as a chunk. I'll do a chunk of geography here, I'll do a chunk of chemistry here, but as Mr. McCallan's plan showed, you're spacing it out and revisiting them as the weeks go by. Now, I guess if we had an ideal relationship between the effectiveness and the use, we would want something like this. We would want the teenagers to be using the most effective strategies most often. I probably don't need to tell you that the relationship is more typically like that. They favor the rereading, they favor the highlighting. And listen, the highlighters are important, they're part of it, don't take them away, but they're just not the best strategy that can be used. So our goal really is, how do we try to lean into what we've discovered and what research has indicated to us are the best bets, those things that are going to give us that wee bit of a head start. So if you go through that process of summarizing, what are the key ideas? How are they connected? You've got those beautiful visual summarized notes, and then you go into rereading? No. We want to encourage you to support your teenager in doing what we're going to be referring to as spaced retrieval. So let me just unpack that a little bit for you here. Retrieval practice is a learning strategy that involves active recall of information from memory rather than simply passively reviewing it. It's self-testing, or quizzing is probably a better word, because testing carries with it some negative connotations. So you quiz yourself, or you would quiz your son or daughter for you. And what that is doing is forcing them to think. Engaging in this active recall helps strengthen the knowledge connections. It improves their ability to retrieve that information and apply it more readily in novel connections. And the science tells us that when we are learning, we're listening and taking in new information, there's physical changes in our brain. There's connections that are made in the brain, but our brain is very, very ruthless in pruning those connections. And what we need to do is to actively recall the information to strengthen them, and the connections will become stronger and stronger over time. Or if you want to consider it like this, a path through an overgrown forest. There is a path in there, but finding a way through that path to get to the place where perhaps you dropped your mobile phone isn't going to be tremendously easy. What if you start to travel this road a little bit more? And the more you walk the path, the more well established it gets, the easier it is that you will find to go to the destination and retrieve that information. And that process should be effortful. There should be effort. It should be hard work and revision, but it's the right kind of hard work, and that kind of hard work of doing the retrieval. Now, again, we have a walkthrough in this, which you can access on the website, which will take you through that step by step a little bit more. And the other aspect of it is the spaced retrieval. And again, the research is very clear on this. If you take the same amount of time and space it out, it produces more remembering. And that's because as you space it out, you have to revisit it. And in between each of those spaces, you begin to forget a little bit, just a little bit. And it's that effort of recalling when you've just begun to forget a little bit that really leans into the benefits of this spaced retrieval. So again, there's a little walkthrough available for you on the website. So I want now to let you have a listen to one of our pupils who's been using this, Casper, in year 14. He's going to refer to this RAG analysis. Mr. McCallan's already talked about that with the spec. This is something I use with our sixth formers. It's the whole of the spec laid out with the weeks across the term. And as we cover those topics, the student is encouraged to fill in their RAG analysis and see how well they're getting on, to allow them then to make their own judgments and choices as to what to prioritize. And we give them this spaced retrieval booklet, which they're to fill in a couple of sessions of those a week. And they're basically to use a variety of the different strategies, and that allow them really to lean into that benefits of the recall and the space retrieval, and they reflect a little bit on their successes or otherwise. So Casper is going to talk about the RAG analysis, the A3 sheet, and he's going to talk about this booklet. Let's have a listen to see what he says. So tell us a little bit about how you do your space retrieval each week, Casper.
Well, I like to. Well, we have two booklets. You've got your retrieval practice booklet, and you've got your RAG analysis sheet / booklet, which is in your booklet. And you go through the subjects on your RAG analysis, and you've got 3 colors: red, amber, and green. And whatever you feel comfortable with: green, amber, so-so, and red, the topics you need to work the most on, obviously. Prioritize the ones you need to work the most on, and then you move over to your actual booklet. So you write out the topic. What I like to personally do is 2 a week, which is recommended. I just like to do mind maps, brain dumps, everything I know, write it all out, certain color pen, little subsections, whatever I know, I put it all down. And at the end, I go back, check it, whatever I need to correct, whatever I've missed, I write it back in with a different colored pen.
So Casper, you were doing a lot of the retrieval practice during term 1. You had about 3 weeks after Christmas to revise for your mocks. What difference did you find that retrieval practice made?
Retrieval practice was great because whenever you sat down to learn it, you figured that you already kind of knew the basics already, you just need the detail. I like to use the analogy of like a tree, for example. You've got the trunk, you've got the branches already there, you just need to add on the little details, you need to add on the leaves, all those little things that make your answer better, exceptional. You've got everything there, but it's just the little details to actually get you to the higher bands. So it's been actually great because you don't have to put as much, you don't have to cram as much, you don't have to put as much effort in because it's already there.
So if that's what we really want to encourage our young people to do once they've made their revision notes, what are some of the methods that you can do to help you support some space retrieval? Well, the first one is what we call a brain dump, which is basically just taking a blank sheet of paper and writing down as much as you possibly can. A lot of the students really like to do something like this, actually. It just is free form, and then you're able to put the elements down, see the connections with them, and then go and check and correct if they've got anything wrong. Again, this is available for you on the website for you to refer to afterwards. Self-quizzing. This is where you can get some questions that are generated in order to help you to ask yourself questions. There's a little bit more structure to this one. And perhaps if a student isn't quite as on top of a topic as they would be for the free recall, this one provides a little bit of structure and provides some questions for them. I'm going to share with you in a few moments about where you can maybe generate some of those questions and how we can lean into technology for ourselves to help with that. And then the final one, which in many ways is the gold standard for all of these, Mr. McCullen's already mentioned it, is flashcards, because this really leans into that self-quizzing effect. And the flashcards, you'll all be familiar with them. Again, this walkthrough will take you through. But I do want to bring you over here to the right-hand side to part 4, the Lightner system, which is a very, very powerful little tweak to the flashcards and how you would use them. So a student, your son or daughter, would simply pick up the flashcard, look at the question on one side, try to recall it, flip it over, and have a look at seeing what the answer is. And if they got that answer really quickly and very accurately, they'll put it on one pile. If they had to think a little bit, but got it eventually, they'll put it in the middle pile. And if there was nothing coming at all, they'll put it in the pile on the right. And what you've done is sorted those out into the flashcards that you need to revisit more often. Obviously, the ones that you struggle to remember most are the ones that you needed to revisit most. And I hope that you can see how this is definitely something that you could be using to help your son or daughter with, just to provide them with that little bit of a structure, even prompting them to head towards that Lightner method, which is a very effective one. So for the department that I lead, the geography department, we have built these into the GCSE books. So if there are any parents here of GCSE geographers, we've done the job of trying to figure these questions out for you. Our students are well trained in using them. They use them a lot in class. And if you take the book from them, there's the questions for you. And crucially, there's the answer right beside it. Because as a parent, whenever I was revising, it was one thing trying to come up with a question. It was another thing having a remote idea of what the answer was in some of the subjects that I'm not so au fait in. So there's an example of how you can do that in class. Another thing that I'll get the students to do is to cover up the main body of the notes so they can only see the questions. And they've basically got built-in flashcards into their notes, a really, really effective way of doing that retrieval practice. Another one that some departments are using in the school are what are called retrieval mats. These are kind of versions, if you like, of revision posters, but rather than having everything down within them, they'll have cues. This is a little bit of cued recall. It's not absolutely a blank page. There are some supports there. And the way that I try to get my students to use these is to take a look at the section of the notes if they need to in advance, but only a quick glance. Say take 2 minutes at this. Because you don't want to remind yourself of it too much. There is that sweet spot with retrieval that if it's too easy, if you've looked over the notes and do the retrieval immediately afterwards, it's too easy. The best benefits of retrieval practice comes when there's a little bit of an effort. Conversely, if it's too difficult, if you can't remember anything, then there's no point staring at a blank page. It's that sweet spot where there's just the right amount of effort. So if the students can flick through a few pages in their notes very, very quickly, they're not reading everything, they're just glancing at things, and then they can go and have a go. And one of the key things with retrieval is to get them to be really comfortable with that pause. Remember with my own daughters, trying to make this as low stakes as possible. That's really, really important. There's a lot of stress in revision, a lot of stress in the exams coming. And just saying to them, do you know what? I bet you do know that. I bet you do know that. I bet you just take a little bit longer and think. And there's no pressure. Just take your time and see if it'll come. And it's like that moments that we'll all know and experience. You know, when something's just in the tip of your tongue. Oh, what was that? And see, it's that moment. I love those moments in my class. Whenever students are doing retrieval, they go, yes, brilliant. I love that sound. Because that's the light bulb moment. That's the moment whenever the connection has been made. So do encourage them to spend a little time. If it doesn't come immediately, that's okay. Just think a little bit more. Now, eventually, if it doesn't come, you might need to go back into your book, flick again. But the key thing is just to flick, don't read it, or your revision notes, whatever it is the source you're using, just to get a few of the ideas going again and have another go and have another go. And it's a really powerful way of getting them to think their way through. So it's a really good strategy to use. Right, I'm going to wrap up my little section by talking about how technology can help. Do you make really good use of visuals and colour, Leah? Why do you think that's a good strategy to use?
I feel like whenever you use color and you use images, you can imagine it in your head. You can imagine the colors that you've used. And I feel like once you have an image in your head and you can annotate around it, it's easier to visualize it in your head and you can just see how the image can draw the information. It can help your structure really come to life.
So how did you get your structure and your subheadings for your notes, Leah?
So I use the specification and the headings under each topic to make my subheadings so it splits it up and I can see the exact structure of each and I'm able to zoom in to all the specific information. So under each subheading you can see that there's loads of information here, but I highlight key information that's going to be used in exam questions that are the key points for you to pick up marks. Like you don't need to learn every single word, but if you stick to the key structure of highlighting underneath the subheading, you'll be able to get key marks in the exam.
So you make really good use of OneNote here, Leah, which allows you to zoom in and out. So I'm interested, how does that zooming allow you to see the big picture, the detail, and to make connections between parts of your notes?
Because the subheadings are so clear, I feel like I can pinpoint information exactly. So if I need to learn something or go over something, I can be like, oh, look, that's a subheading. I can zoom in, I can get all the information. It's quick, it's there. I know I've written it. I know everything that's key in the highlighted parts. I can, yes, I can look at the subheadings, but then topics can connect and I can understand everything. I know the exact structure. For an essay, essays will intertwine with each other and I'm able to pick out information, extract it quickly, and being able to remember the structure in the exam, and I'm able to get answers done really quickly because of the efficient structure that I'm learning my notes through.
So when we zoom out, Leah, I can see that you've got some past paper questions down at the bottom. How are you using those whenever you revise?
So basically when I'm revising, so I can use my structure and I can look at all the information, I can learn that, and then I can blank, and then I can get a specific past paper question which is linked to one of the topics, and I can fill out the past paper, and then I can mark it using my notes because I have all the information up here, and then I can test myself on the information. Am I understanding it? Are the pictures helping me understand what the questions are asking? And I can mark it. It's just so quick and easy. I have the information here. There's no book flicking. There's no stressing out. Oh no, I haven't filled that in. The information's here and I can just quickly go here and be like, yep, I know what it is. And even if I don't understand the question, I can look at it and be like, okay, I know where this is coming from. I can locate where the question is coming from the topic headlines that I have, and I can locate and pinpoint the information that I need to give me the marks that I need in the question.
So that's a fabulous example of OneNote used there. And I love that infinite zoom, or at least very significant zoom, because it allows you to zoom out and see the big pictures, the structure, and zoom in and see the detail. And you can see how fabulously Leah has done that. I talked in revision notes at the start, the summary, the structure and the connections, and Leah has really used OneNote to help with that. What about AI? I do remember one vivid occasion whenever I was revising with one of my daughters for GCSE chemistry. Now, I will have to admit, chemistry is my nemesis. I did A-level physics, and biology is close enough to geography for me to be okay. Chemistry seems like the dark arts to me. I don't understand it at all. This was from one of the revision guides who was sitting down reading it. Metal carbonates react with dilute acid to produce salt of a metal, water, and carbon dioxide. Now, I know water, no carbon dioxide. What was the salt of a metal? Had no idea. That's all I could think of. Now, of course, thankfully, being a teacher, I was able to reach out to a science teacher friend of mine, and they said this. I'm reliably informed that that's perfectly accurate, but I'm afraid it seemed like double Dutch to me. And then even this, and I said, okay, I've got it, which it was a wee exaggeration. I didn't get it at all. Conceptually speaking, what is a salt in this context? And that's part of the reason why I would say that for me, that whole notion of like facing the shark was me completely out of my depth. Decades of experience as a teacher, and I hadn't a clue, even whenever I was able to reach out to a science teacher friend of mine. So this is where AI, I think, can help a little bit. This is Gemini. You'll be familiar with ChatGPT. Apologies about the dog in the background. So I'm a parent helping my son study for GCSE chemistry. There's a section on the salt of a metal. I don't understand this as a concept. Using analogies, explain this concept to me in everyday language and suggest ways I could explain it to my son. And what that's able to do is to give us this information and break it down into things that hopefully are a little bit more accessible. So you can see some of the ways that it's suggesting that for me. But even when I'm looking at that, there's terms down there that I'm not 100% certain on. So you're using terms I don't understand. Really, can you break this down, or can you simplify this down even more for me? And it's able to do so. It's able to make this in even a format that I can understand, thankfully. You'll see some of the terms coming up here. So whether it's ChatGPT or whether it's Gemini or any of the other AI tools that are available to us, these are very good ways for us as parents when we're trying to help our young people with content that we maybe don't know much about. We can really lean into that and get a little bit of support. And we can also then use that. I talked earlier on about how you might generate retrieval practice questions. So here's me asking off the back of this, generate 10 retrieval practice questions in this topic for GCSE level to give me answers alongside some prompts I might give if my son gets stuck. When I'm doing retrieval practice with the students in my classes, I'll say to them, or maybe if one is quizzing the other one and the other one is getting stuck, I'll say, right, come up with a clever clue. Don't give the answer, give a clever clue. Well, that's okay if you know the content, but what if you don't? Well, here's where AI can really help, and it can help you become an awful lot more knowledgeable. I remember one of my daughters used to be amazed when she was in primary school how much I knew. How do you know all of that, Daddy? I kept on saying to her, well, they taught me that in Daddy school. And then whenever she discovered there was no such thing as Daddy school, she was horrified. Daddy has been making it up all these years. Yeah. So you can maybe kind of lean into this for a little bit of support for those moments where you don't really understand much yourself, and I've certainly felt that. Mr. McCallan mentioned Anki, another digital tool. This is a fabulous little tool which you can have desktop version, or there's an app for Android or for iPhone. And it basically allows you to generate these flashcards yourself. So this is just a little bit something that I did. And again, if you want to get those questions from AI, it's very easy for you to do so. It's the process of river erosion, whereby the river uses its load to erode the bed and banks. And I can then put the answer in. I can save that, and you can put it in organize it under these different decks. So if you get the structure of what you're studying, and then I can just add that, and then I just go through and it quizzes me on those. I've set up a few quizzes. What are the 4 process of river erosion, I think? And then here's the thing, it can lean into the Lentner method. This is really good because you rate down at the bottom how quickly you got to the answer. And guess what? It's very clever. If you say, I really struggled with that, it's going to return that slide deck to you more quickly. If you go, no, I got that quickly, it'll not return it as quickly either. So it's a really powerful tool. And the students that I've taught that use this will also say that it just comes with them everywhere. Whenever they're going on the bus to and from school, they have got access to you. Ultimately, at the end of the day, folks, we really, really appreciate the partnership between school and home. We're all very much in the same team and the same side, but we really appreciate the support. It's absolutely crucial. Anything that you can do to help your son or daughter will be only for the benefit of us all. But I will say this and finish off as a parent. You are a parent. I am a parent primarily whenever I'm home here. We want to give all of the support that we can, but we just want to try and find ways of making this good quality time that we can spend with our children, with our teenagers. I was saying to Mr. McCallan earlier on, part of what I think I love about being a teacher is that because I spend time with teenagers all day, I've never really had to grow up too much. Just have a bit of crack with them, have a bit of fun. When those times just lean in a little bit more and put on a little bit more of the pressure, those times whenever, let's jump in the car and we'll head down and we'll get a Tim Hortons and we'll just have a little bit of a laugh. So what we're trying to do here is to equip you, but you are the experts, obviously, with your own teenagers. So ultimately, let's see this as an opportunity that for us as parents, when we're working with our own young people, to be an opportunity really to try and foster those relationships and build some quality time together.
Thank you all for coming along. I am going to talk to you a little bit this evening about supporting your child's emotional health and well-being through these exams that are upcoming. Exams are a stressful time, and we see it in schools every year. And it's something that we have to pay attention to, and we have to try and support young people through, because the stress is probably not going to go away. So we need to find ways to help them manage the stress when they are revising and have exams looming over them. In terms of what causes the stress, it can be a number of different things. Pressure of results potentially. If we're thinking about me when I was younger, the panic of not enough time and leaving everything to the last minute. Peers can also cause this stress for young people, and it can present in many different ways. So there's a few there on the screen that you can see, and you will know your young person and know how stress looks for them. But it can have a physical impact on their health. It can affect their behaviour, so they may procrastinate. In my house, they become snappy and I can't do anything right. And that's all those stressors coming out in a way for them that they can manage to try and alleviate some of that. I suppose one of the things that's important with stress with exams is if a young person is feeling very stressed, they can't take information in. Their brain really sort of closes down, and they need to find a way to empty that stress out so that they can begin to learn again. So we need to give them strategies to allow them to do that. And we're very keen here on school in supporting the emotional health and well-being of young people through the Take 5 programme, which you may have heard of. And we've been involved with the team in promoting that in school. So I want to talk to you a wee bit about that and the important ways that we can help. And one of them is through supporting physical well-being. Now, I know you will know these things. You will know about a balanced diet and exercise and sleep. And I know these things. And when I'm stressed, I eat junk, I don't exercise, and I can't sleep very well. So I suppose it's making sure that you take control of the young person, and we do in school as well, to try and support them, to tell them to try and exercise and sleep and eat a healthy diet. And I was fortunate enough to be at mental health first aid training last week, and we looked at the importance of serotonin. And serotonin helps with mood, and it helps to alleviate the symptoms of stress and anxiety. And serotonin is boosted with good sleep, with good diet, and with exercise. And exercise is actually prescribed to some patients who have poor mental health to help them try and promote their serotonin levels. So I just find that so interesting. There's science behind this. It's not just, it's an old thing. It's something that we all know, but there's real science behind it. So just encouraging our young people to get out, to exercise, and to eat well. And I suppose you as parents have some control over that as well. If we think about, excuse me, emotional well-being, then these are things that will help all of us in our emotional well-being. But if we think about young people during exam periods, there's probably a temptation, if you are very conscientious or maybe have left things to the last minute, to cram, to try and do as much as you can. And both Mr. McCallan and Mr. Hamill have talked about breaks, and it is so important to give proper brain breaks. So allow them to go outside, to go online and chat to friends if they want, but just to get that time to get away from work and to get away from thinking, and take that pressure off. Also, connecting with other people is so important. And for young people, that comes in the form of socializing. So letting them go out and meet friends, because they can have conversations with friends that are going to help to make them feel better. And those connections are so important, and potentially also getting fresh air and out of the house as well. Online connection is good too, just as a sort of a venting opportunity potentially. The other thing that we can do is praise the effort and the work as opposed to the final outcome. So not focusing on what's at the end of all this. You're going to have an exam, come on, you need to get this done. More thinking about language, saying this is great, you're doing really well, you're working really hard. And that positive language really helps the young person to feel less stressed, and taking away that sort of the pressure that's at the end of the system, and just focusing on the work at the moment, which is a lot of what Mr. Hamill has said there as well. Be involved, but not too much. So I suppose what I mean by this is know what they're doing, know what's going on, and be able to take an interest in it. So maybe some nights work in the kitchen, and as I mean your child to do their revision in the kitchen, so that you're able to say, what are you doing there? Do you want me to help you with that? And again, that's that connection for your child, and just letting them see that you're taking an interest, and that will hopefully make them feel like they've got loads of support, and that they're not in this on their own. Monitoring screen time is something that has been referenced several times this evening, and it's something that I feel very strongly about. Obviously with pastoral care, I see a lot of negative associations with social media, and with chats that are going on online. So it's just being aware of that, because our young people aren't just doing exams, they have all the other pressures of being a teenager going on for them at the same time. So they might be seeing things online that are going to upset them. There's a number of different things I could be referencing there, but it's just making sure that they're not online all the time on social media. And I would be really promoting not taking phones up to bed at night. And I know that's really hard to place. I appreciate that. And you as parents know what's best. But I just think the temptation to get onto social media when you're in bed and then you're seeing things that are going to upset you, then you can't sleep properly, maybe getting involved in conversations till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And it's happening. It happens every night. And it's just to really help to say that's not going to happen tonight. Just leave the phone downstairs and see if there's a change and an impact on stress levels from doing that. The other thing that young people can do, well, any of us can do, is relaxation techniques. Now, there's so many different things that you can do. You know, there's mindfulness, there's grounding activities, breathing activities, but it might just be going for a walk, taking the dog out, and going for a swim. Just anything that you know works for your child. It might be watching a movie on Netflix. Just get away from the revision and take some time just to relax, and try and just focus on having a bit of downtime and a bit of fun potentially. If you have a stressed young person in the house, it's important to try and talk to them about that. And I know that might be a challenging conversation from the point of view of, if I say to my child, how are you, or how was your day, I get grunted at. There tends not to be much engagement until he is ready to talk to me. This is my older child, my son. So it's just trying to find the best space to have a conversation and saying, look, are you okay? I've noticed that you've been a bit snappy with us. I've noticed that you're not eating your dinner, and I've found, chocolate wrappers in your bedroom, and just have those conversations. And a place that I have had success in those conversations, and this is just me giving you a bit of my personal insight, is in the car. So when my son's sitting beside me in the car, he talks to me, and I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's the lack of pressure with eye contact, or he knows that I'm having to concentrate on something else, but also we're having this chat. So find that space that works for you, that you can talk to your child and just check in with them. And if they're not coping, then you can put the wheels in motion to get them that bit of support. And the final thing is just to be positive. And I know that I am sure that is happening, but it's just using positive language. This is going really well. I can see that you're working really hard. Why don't we do something nice together? And just trying to take the negativity out of preparing for exams, because it is something that we talk to pupils in assembly about exams. You can sense the nerves, and when they're coming in to do their exams again, you can sense it. And I have an increase in visits to my office, as do the pastoral team at this time of year. So I suppose we're all very conscious of this period, but trying to make positive associations with it. And it's just a stage that we're in, and we're going to get through it, and you're doing really well. And just really encouraging the young people that you have at home and that we have in school. And if you are concerned about your child's mental health, about stress, there are a number of ways in which we can support them in school, and that you can access support for them as well. So we have Links Counselling who work with us in school, and if you feel that your child would benefit from that, you can contact the pastoral care team, or you can do an online referral yourself. Reach Mentoring also work with us, and they're an amazing service, and mentor young people, and quite often it is around exam stress. The Here to Help app I've put on there as well, and it is a fabulous tool. And when you go to the Here to Help app, it will give you the option of, I have a problem, or I need help now. So you click in to whichever section of that is relevant, and it is a signposter for loads of different agencies. So if there's a bit of additional support needed and you don't want to contact school, that is an avenue for you to go. And finally, I've already mentioned the Take 5 Steps to Wellbeing, which really incorporates everything that I've said this evening. So being active, connecting, talking to friends, and keep learning is one of the aspects of the Take 5 Steps to Wellbeing as well. Notice, give, all of those things. If you go to the Take 5 website, there's loads of different suggestions with regard to how that you can do that. So folks, thank you so much for listening to me this evening. Hopefully you found everything that we had to say helpful. And I'm now going to pass over to Mr. McCallan, who is going to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Folks, thank you very much for joining us. I thought Mrs. Hannah was very comfortable in my seat there, and she's more than welcome to stay there if she wishes. Can I genuinely thank you, for coming along this evening. You know, Mr. Hamill has dropped some links into the chat function there as well. You know, we have tried to present a message of our 3 B's in school, the be ready, be kind, and belong message. And we certainly want our parents and our pupils and ourselves to work together in an acute sense of belonging in the school. We want our pupils to be ready. And I'm taken to an interview I did quite recently when somebody asked me in relation to that, what was the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you? And after pondering for a few seconds, I just thought, be there. So if I added a 4th B, it would be there. And I think at this stage in our young people's year and in our young people's life, it's just so important that we're all there for them and to support them, and to support them in whatever way we feel is appropriate at that given time. So I hope you found this evening of use. We will be stopping the recording now. I'm going to stop the recording now, and then we'll take some questions.